Well, hello and welcome again to the Skillwork Forum. My name's Tim and I'm joined with my partner here, Brett from Skillwork. And again, this podcast exists to help you as leaders or folks that work in transportation, manufacturing, construction, anybody who works with or deals with skilled labor, to help you with some of the challenges that we all face in trying to fill the gap that's out there with respect to finding the skilled tradesman, craftsman that you need to operate your business. So last time we did a podcast, we introduced this topic. It's going to be 6 parts, and it really has to do with what we're calling the cost of not changing. And in this sense, the cost of not changing the direction you're heading with respect to your skilled tradesman staffing challenges. And all of us reach a tipping point at times that cause us to stop and think about the path we're on. Perhaps we need to try something different to change the trajectory of where we're heading. In this case, with respect to your company and your business, how long can you go on with the approach you're using to try to address your skilled trade shortage? And maybe it's time to look at perhaps some new avenues to take. And that's what we're here to talk about today. So there's 6 different facets that we're going to talk about with respect to this cost. Last time, Brett, we talked about the actual cost. We talked about real cost and then hidden cost. And in that, we briefly mentioned the stress to your staff or to the folks that work at your business or on your project. So the stress to your staff is a very real and viable thing that we're going to drop into in a little bit more detail here today as we talk about that. And it's interesting, you've got a story here about one of the clients that we've been dealing with lately, and you talked about they become a victim of their own success.
Yeah, I think this particular client, which is a fairly new one of ours, is in the construction space, and you would think that in this season, COVID season that we're in, a lot of construction, has been down, unfortunately, but in their case, they were busy before, but because of the specific space that they work in, primarily in the construction space, their business actually went crazy during the COVID because of they worked in a lot of the essential business spaces, and they needed to do some things, and they needed them to do it now. And so I think a lot of times when we talk about managing stress or management, you think about well, that's because of some failure, so like you just said, Tim, a lot of times really the stress comes from your successes because your successes cause your business maybe to grow at a pace that you're not able to keep up with. I mean, this is probably almost always true when you're talking about talent. I mean, if you don't have any business and you're not making any money, you probably don't need to hire any more people. And the
ones that you have are probably not very stressed.
Right.
They're hanging around.
Yeah, they're working 4 days a week and playing cards on the 4th day. And so, but in this particular company, in their situation, they're so busy because of their success, but when we met them and we got brought in through another gentleman that I knew who had a relationship with them, and he recognized that they really could use your help, and I think we may have even mentioned it in a prior podcast, but when we met them, they were literally my client sales gentleman that does the construction business. He looked at me after the call and said, they're literally hopeless. He said the look on their face was of such despair that they had so much business, they had no idea how they were going to address. They were convinced that they couldn't find the talent wasn't out there. It was just almost this crazy cycle. They had lost some key individuals already because of the workload. I mean, they were literally working their guys 7 days a week. Their clients were threatening them, if you're not here on Tuesday, we're kicking you out. It was a high level of stress.
Yeah. So they were definitely a victim of their own success. And later on, we'll talk about something that that was a phrase was coined in the 60s called the tyranny of the urgent. In other words, you get so caught up doing urgent tasks that you don't have time to do the important things. And that's what a lot of companies find themselves in, and that just causes a serious amount of stress and mental, physical, physiological impact to your workforce. And that's really what we want to talk about today. But that client that you talked about, we offered them a solution, and inside a week, we're able to get them quality, talented, experienced workers that they needed to be able to address this issue, and immediately begin to alleviate that stress because some of their key employees saw the fact that, hey, they're doing something. They recognize our pain, for lack of a better word, and they're doing something about it. Immediately, there's a change in countenance and a change in attitude there with respect to that. So far the client is thrilled, and we're getting them great people. Of course, our job and the euphoria is pretty short-lived if we don't follow through and continue to do that, but that's on us, and that's what we focus on every day. So as we delve into this topic of your business, and maybe it's something you're dealing with right now, and I can tell you this, that your employees, the people that are doing the job every day, they're going to feel this probably far more early and more painfully than you will. Because as a leader, and if I'm talking to you as a business leader, you're probably looking at the revenue and lining up new work and getting the new line going. But it's the wise leader who assesses the impact to their workforce, and that's kind of what we're going to be talking about there. How do you recognize that, and what do you do about it? So stress on your current staff is felt in a number of ways. We're going to hit on some of those here. It could be morale, could be just walking out the door, the culture that we've talked about before, this sense of dread, overwhelming sense of dread that I don't even want to go in anymore, and as you mentioned, Brett, even hopelessness. So let's jump into that and talk about some of these other facets with this cost of doing nothing.
Yep. No, for sure. I mean, whether it's, like the client we mentioned a minute ago in the construction space, or whether it's manufacturing, when you're understaffed, and it's creating this stress level that, kind of leads to burnout and so forth, one of your only answers is to work the people you have more. I mean, you really have no other option. Is you work them a lot over time, and people are very resilient, and they're very usually committed to the company, and they're willing, and there's almost an excitement, for a season. If everybody's got to pull together, and we got to get through this opportunity, the issue becomes when that season appears to have no ending.
Right. So, yeah. So, and some of these things we may have mentioned before in other facets of this topic, but they bear repeating here, particularly focusing on this idea of stress to your current workforce. And something we see quite often is turnover. A lot of turnover, meaning your new employees are coming in, they're rushed through training, they're rushed through onboarding, and even in our business, we've had some of our folks that get put in places where they're really in serious need, and they show up in the morning, and normally a 2 to 3 day orientation they do in 30 minutes, and here's your tool belt, off you go. And so that obviously leads to a sense of, man, I'm not prepared. I really don't know my way around. There's a stress that comes into the mindset of those employees that kind of get rushed into before they have a chance to get oriented to what they're doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think another one, probably the third one in this kind of category of these things that all lead up to stress inside your business. And that is, and we hear this a lot, and that is that companies lower the bar. They can't find the talent they're looking for. They can't find the skill set they're looking for. And so truly, they convince themselves if we can just find people that would show up for work, they tell us, that would be, good enough. Well, I guess I'm here to say that in this case, probably good enough is not enough. That good enough mentality is going to cause a lot more issues with your really skilled individuals, your people that are putting in the hard work, and now they see what you're bringing in to, for them to train, or to, as I think, Tim, you say, they're left to clean up the broken glass, and that creates stress. And in the worst case, that experienced talent gets frustrated enough that they leave.
Yeah, for sure. And another part of that is because you need, you got to keep the line running, got to get the project done. You take somebody maybe that's an existing employee that's really good over here doing this job, and you use them over here to plug this hole. So you put a round peg in a square hole. So maybe they were doing a great job for you over here, and now you put them into some place where they're not trained, not qualified, it's not their passion. Now they're not doing what they add value doing, and they're doing this job, which either they're not safe or they're not doing well, and mentally that begins to affect people to where they're disgruntled and dissatisfied with what they're doing. I mean, here, Brett, if I didn't do a good job keeping operations of the company up and staffed, and you came in and I said, hey, I need you to man the phones out there and start recruiting tomorrow.
Yeah.
I mean, you probably figure it out, but
yeah, probably wouldn't go well.
Wouldn't go well. Yeah. So, this is what we see a lot of times is you're moving people around to plug holes. And again, people can do this for a season, but if that becomes the norm, you're constantly robbing Peter to pay Paul. That's going to have a negative effect on your workforce.
Yep. Yeah. Probably the next one on the list, is a little bit around, company morale and employee training and improvement programs. We're kind of talking around a lot of similar issues here with kind of nuances, but when you get caught in, I don't know, there's one of the many business books out there that talks about, dealing in the whirlwind, and so where the whirlwind meaning you're so focused in today's issues that you've stopped even thinking long term. Everything has become short term, and in that case, then typically things that are employee driven to increase morale. I mean, it's almost like, well, we don't even have time to think about that right now. We've got to get this job done, or we're going to, this client is going to fire us.
Yeah, sorry, no Christmas party this year. We're too busy.
Yeah.
Or, yeah, I know we were going to send you that training, but not going to be able to do it now. And
Yep.
yeah, that all adds up and really begins to impact the overall attitude. And we talk about this, and I think it's so important to recognize that your culture, your values that you took years to build, sometimes generationally, family-owned businesses, can erode in a short amount of time just because you put undue amount of stress on your workforce for an extended period of time. Again, we're not talking about a season, a project. We all know how to get in the boat and row hard for a season, but it really comes down to when your team, your employees, I say it all the time, our most valuable asset is our people. When they don't believe that you are hearing or feeling or understanding the pain that they're going through, when they don't see that you are either recognizing or doing anything about it, that affects their attitude. And attitude, Zig Ziglar used to say, your attitude determines your altitude, which is your sense of well-being and how you feel about the job. So it's a very real thing, and again, I think it's important to recognize it could be affecting your culture. It takes a long time to fix that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no doubt. And I think you're right, Tim. I think step one is recognizing it as a business leader. It's like we talk about in the integrity book that we're doing with Dr. Cloud. A big step or a big part of being a quality leader is self-awareness, both self-awareness as an individual, as a leader, but also self-awareness of your business and being able to truly look and say, where are we at on this? And as we've indicated, we've talked about it a couple times here, there's a difference between a season and a lifestyle. And so you've got to recognize as a business, the one we talked about at the beginning of this podcast, they were smart enough, I think, to recognize that this season, even though their business was growing rapidly because of COVID, that the reality was, though, if they were honest, they didn't really see that changing dramatically coming out. That they had been really busy. This pushed them over the top, and now they recognized that we need to let our employees know that we see it too.
Yeah. And you mentioned COVID a few times, and I think it's worth stating again that there's just this underlying current in our culture right now. And, it's the election season, it's crazy season, but there's an underlying current of fear that people seem to have, and the stress levels are at an all-time high. We're seeing the ramifications of this throughout the culture, and it's sad. Some of the statistics are really startling with respect to the overall health for our culture. So these are the folks that come in and work for you every day. So they're feeling that already, and if you add additional stress to that, it really can be impactful. So study after study reveals that people under stress for a sustained period of time, significant health issues, both mental and physiological. We covered this in detail previously, but more sick days, more workplace injuries, lost time, underlying mental health issues, et cetera, et cetera. Very real costs.
Yeah, and then, as business leaders, I think all of us, we should truly care about the people. We talk about being a servant leader, which, Pat Lencioni said there really is no other kind of leader. If you're not a servant leader, then you're really not a leader. And so it really should go. You shouldn't have to say, well, I want to, servant leadership. It kind of goes with the term. And so, but if that is the case, then that means that we truly care about our people. Well, when you have your people under a lot of stress, you take the earlier example we used. If you've got people in a season even that are working 6-7 days a week, multiple weeks, especially in a construction business, they can often be, doing a project out of town. The impact that starts to have on families and who aren't really equipped. In our business, we have, by design, we have skilled trade people that travel, but it's done in a balanced form. They're in a time of life where it makes sense for them. If you're somebody who you went to work for a company and that wasn't really what you thought you were signing up for, but you need to work, the impact of that to family life and relationships and all those other things, begin to have an impact. And I think as business leaders, it matters. It should.
Yeah, and company gets a reputation of, hey, don't go to work for that place. It's a meat grinder. So let's talk about what are some things that we can do then as business leaders, Brett. We've given a lot of, kind of bad news, if you will. How can we help? What are some tips, some advice, some counsel we can give to maybe help turn this around and recognize it?
Yeah, no, the first thing, is always to listen and communicate openly, with your staff, with your employees, whether that's directly, when we speak to say middle management individuals in companies that have brought us in to help them, it's very clear. They know exactly where it's at. And like I said, they're encouraged by the fact that somebody else is recognizing it because they've been on the front line, they've seen it for a while. So I think that's not, whether that's through just meetings or talking, or maybe in some organizations it's better to do actual surveying. There's lots of companies. We'll plug our friend's business. Greg Harris over at Quantum Workplace, that's what they do. They do surveying of, the health of your organization, and they really try to help you make a healthy culture inside. That's kind of what their business is about. So,
yeah, and I'm a big fan of what sometimes called skip level. Like go down a couple levels in your organization. Sometimes you can get the real truth from somebody that's not directly reporting to you. You need to do that. So I would say also what you can do is treat your staffing challenge as strategic to your company, like you would any other. In our case, we have our rhythm is at least monthly. We meet as a core group with department heads to talk about projections of staff for the next 90 days or so. Where are openings? Where do we need to focus next? What does it look like that we're going to be stressed the most? We need to move anybody from within the organization from one area to another. So we treat it very strategically. You and I, as running the business, we're in that meeting. We signal to the people here that is very important, and we're constantly hearing and asking for inputs, and we ask probing questions to make sure that we don't get blindsided. So I would say treat staffing as strategic to business. Don't treat it as something that you react to. Treat it as something you're proactive about.
Yeah, I mean, and if you're a company that does forecasting and planning, whether that's from a financial perspective, or whether from a sales perspective, or just your overall project, type thing, like you said, Tim, all of those, it's really critical that you at least have a plan. You have it on paper. Being understaffed or not having the talent probably starts in a failure to plan, or at least get it on the table. Now, I know it's difficult, and I hear it all the time. Well, we don't know. Everything is sales driven, and so there's some truth to that. Sure. But that doesn't mean that you shouldn't have an idea of what our needs are going to be if these things happen. Because if you're in the middle of it and you already have the business, and now you're just now starting to talk about it, you've got some catching up to do. And there's going to be some stress on your business.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's very valid. That you can't. You have to assume that if we should expand, or if we should need to get another line up 6 months from now, what do we need to do to be in place? So it's much easier to respond when you're moving than from a dead stop. So I would say that these ideas, we'll encapsulate a few more in what I consider more short term you can do right now, and maybe some longer term things that Brad will hit on. So for the short term, reach out to a company like ours, one that you vet well and that you trust, that has your interest in mind, for a short term solution to help you fill this gap. That we can come in, we can assess your needs. We've had other podcasts where we talk about our multi-step process we have for vetting and making sure that we put the right people in place to address your issues, guarantee our folks, guarantee what we do. We stand behind our name and what we provide you. So we can stopgap, allow you to alleviate some of that stress, so then you can work on maybe some of these more long-term issues. Some other short-term things you can do is get creative in finding ways to get your staff time off. I mean, there's more ways to solve the problem than working people 7 days a week. Look for creative ways to give people even half days off. Time away when you're in crunch, or even knocking off early, or doing something, bringing in meals. There's creative ways you can do to recognize your staff and reward them. Communicate what you're doing in the near term. So important to let them know, I understand what you're going through. We know what you guys are doing. We appreciate it. Here are the steps that we're taking. And the other thing we like to do is give us some input. What are some ways that we might be able to do that we're not seeing? So getting people involved in the problem is huge. Let them know that you get it. That's that empathy that's so crucial to, having integrity as a leader. And finally, the last one in terms of short term is be realistic about taking on new work. The opportunity may be there, but can you realistically do that in this season and manage your customers' expectations? You may not be able to meet that 60-day turnaround that you did last project when you were well-staffed. You may need to talk to them, manage their expectations, so you're not having your staff pay the price for your poor planning and execution at the top level.
Yep, and then kind of more long-term, and that could be, 3, 6, 12 months. You could also be 5 to 10 year type of planning from a long-term perspective. And so, but in more of a 3 to 6 month, implement a strategic staff planning process, forecast what your needs are going to be over the next, 3 to 6 months. So on a longer term, we talk with companies all the time today that are doing truly long-term planning of partnering with, for example, community colleges, trade schools. But that's a very long term. We talk about it all the time at Skillwork. We're the gap filler. You don't have 10 years to solve your problem.
Yep.
And so so we can fill that gap, but as a company, we encourage companies to think long term. Do invest in how you're long term going to solve this talent need, and along with that goes develop internal training. So that you can promote more people from within. Obviously, anytime, we've always talked about it, whether here at Skillwork or in previous businesses, anytime you can promote from within, you should. And so, but part of that is helping people grow inside your organization. As business leaders, if we're not mentoring and growing our people, we're really not doing a good job of growing our business or them.
Right.
And so, and then, as Tim said, reward creatively, provide time off and flexible work hours. Not every business is able to be as flexible as some, this is when the line runs, this is when you got to be on it.
Sure.
And kind of a thing. But other businesses, do have the ability to be a little more, flexible, whatever that may look like. And then, again, like we said, providing those internal opportunities to whether it's to move up or move between positions, whether that's cross training, whatever that looks like. But all of that will begin to aid your culture and bring the stress levels down.
Yeah, and all these things are designed to do that. To what can you do to kind of reduce the stress level, let the people know that you're doing something about it, reward your folks who are going the extra mile, and let them know it's a season, not a lifestyle, and you recognize that, and reward them for the work that they're doing for you. So this again is the second of 6 topics we're going to talk about with respect to the pain of not changing or doing nothing, and this is the one where we talk about the stress to your workforce and the underlying implications of that. We'll be hitting 4 other topics in the next few weeks, so we invite you to join us the next time we gather together. Until then, we thank you very much for your work that you do, and if you'd like to reach out to us at Skillwork to maybe let us assess or help you assess some of the things we might be able to help you with in the short term or long term, reach out to us at skillwork.com. We'd love to engage you directly. Have a great day.